This is Chasing the Horizon, a podcast by, for, and about motorcyclists. Welcome to Chasing the Horizon, brought to you by the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America. We've submitted the podcast to iTunes, and it should be up on that platform later this month. Until then, you can still listen to and download the podcast by going to our website at bmwmoa.org/podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Wes Fleming. Welcome to Chasing the Horizon. I'm going to jump right into the news this episode because we've got a lot to talk about before we get to our discussion with Moira Zinn. As I promised you I would in the last episode, I stopped by Harley-Davidson's booth at this year's AIM Expo, where Harley's PR manager, Matt King, spoke to me briefly about the V-Rod. We talked about the many thousands of happy V-Rod riders out there in the world, and we're both sure that they're disappointed that Harley's decided to drop the V-Rod from its lineup. As Matt said, models come and models go, and this is certainly something played out by every manufacturer in the business. I think the V-Rod had a good run, and it showed Harley's willingness to try new things. If the numbers aren't there, and the projected numbers for next year aren't there, and the year after, if the projected numbers aren't there either, the smart thing to do from a corporate level is to retire the model. It can be hard to accept when that model in question is one that you love, but business is business, and even beloved models packed with advanced technology sometimes get pulled. Matt reminded me that Harley announced the sunset of the V-Rod last year, even if people didn't want to believe it would really happen. Don't despair, though, because even though Matt couldn't give me any specific information about the future, I implied from his comments that Harley may be working on something that won't necessarily replace the V-Rod, but will keep Harley in the power cruiser segment down the road. No matter what they put out in that segment, you can rest assured we'll find a way to get our hands on one and tell you all about it. In other Harley news, they put out a post on Facebook that they're shaking up their dealer network in Malaysia by actively seeking new dealers in that part of Asia. Malaysia and Asia, I realize those rhyme, and I apologize for that. Harley said its goal is to make sales outside North America 50% of its annual business. At the same time, Harley lost its association with the NASA World Group, which announced it's closing or divesting all of its Harley dealerships and focusing on Italian brands and their own in-house motorcycles. For one last bit of Harley news, they just opened a brand new dealership in Bengaluru, India. You might know Bengaluru by its anglicized name, Bangalore, but the shop they're opening there is the 27th Harley dealership in India, so clearly they see growth opportunity there. I talked about Royal Enfield and its American plans in episode 4, the last episode, so it shouldn't be much of a surprise that I came across some Royal Enfield news while preparing for this episode. It's not huge news because they've already been spotted, photographed, and put on the internet, but Royal Enfield's new Interceptor 750 is expected to debut at EICMA in early November. EICMA is a big motorcycle industry trade show, kind of like AIM Expo, but bigger and has been around longer, and it's held in Italy every year. I'd sure like to go someday, that's definite. Not this year, though. Anyway, the Interceptor looks a lot like the current Continental GT model, but with a bigger engine, 750 cc's instead of 525. It's rumored to have about 50 horsepower, which is about the same as a Ural, so it can't be all that bad, right? Since Enfields are more about style than power, that should be acceptable for their oil-cooled parallel twin. Now we'll turn to cycle news for some more stories and drag ourselves back to North America. I spent a good bit of time at Indian's booth when I went to the AIM Expo in Columbus, Ohio last week. One of the things that I wanted to see was, of course, flat track champion Jared Meese, who has been tearing up the circuit with his 750cc race bike. But I also wanted to lay my eyes on Indian's Burt Munro tribute bike. You may recognize Burt Munro's name, as he was famously portrayed by Anthony Hopkins in the movie World's Fastest Indian. Munro was from New Zealand and spent nearly 5 decades working on a 1920 Indian he bought, eventually taking it to the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah and achieving a 184 mile an hour land speed record for naturally aspirated motorcycles under 1,000 cc's, a record, incidentally, which has not been broken since he set it in 1967. Indian's Munro tribute wasn't meant to break that record, but rather had Indian chasing a land speed record in another class. The streamlined bike is called the Spirit of Munro, and it was ridden by Munro's great nephew, a guy called Lee. Indian took one of their scouts and had it completely worked over and then entered it in the modified partial streamliner 1350cc class. Lee said, quote, "Success in my eyes is more to do with living the life you want, living it to its fullest, and inspiring people along the way. We're doing this for Bert, and it means a lot to me." It was Lee's second attempt at a land speed record atop an Indian. The first attempt was successful, and Lee achieved a record of 186.681 miles per hour at the El Mirage dry lake bed in Southern California. They were aiming for 200 miles an hour this time around at Bonneville, but since the usually dry Salt Lake bed was wetter than it has been in recent history, it undermined everybody's attempts. Unfortunately, the Indian team only managed to reach a speed just over 186 miles per hour, quite a bit short of their goal. Of course, they were disappointed, but I have no doubt they'll be back for another attempt when the flats conditions are more conducive to high-speed runs. I know the news is running a bit long this time, but there's one more story I want to tell you about. This just came out in Cycle News' website on Thursday, which is only 3 days ago at this point. 2 days ago, excuse me. Cycle News wrote, and I quote, "The state of California's love affair with the internal combustion engine looks like it's on borrowed time, as state officials are currently looking at ways to achieve long-term air quality goals." Now, California has long been the tip of the spear when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions standards and regulations that restrict them. Much of its effort comes through the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, as it's usually called. I think it's kind of ironic that the organization in California that looks to restrict greenhouse gas emissions by putting restrictions on gasoline burning internal combustion engines is called CARB. Maybe that's just me. California is not alone in their efforts, though. A lot of the 2017 model updates from some of our favorite brands, like Triumph and Ducati and BMW especially, were driven by a new European emissions standard, the EU4 standard, and the Netherlands, Germany, Scotland, France, the rest of the UK have all sketched out plans to completely eliminate gasoline-powered vehicle sales, some of them starting as early as 2020. Apparently, California Governor Jerry Brown wants California on that list as well, with rumors being that he intends to end the sale of gasoline-powered vehicles in the state by 2030. CARB Chair Mary Nichols said, quote, "It's awfully hard to predict any of that with precision. I guess we'll find out in the coming decades whether or not we'll see the end of internal combustion in our lifetimes, but rest assured, we'll keep up with it right here on Chasing the Horizon." That's going to be it for news on this episode. Thanks to Cycle News again for supporting and sponsoring the podcast. Don't forget to check them out and subscribe at cyclenews.com. In this episode's discussion section, we finally get to talk to Moira Zinn, who started a company called Powertrip Industries some time ago. There were some technical problems with the sound files I recorded when I initially interviewed Moira, but I got those figured out, and here we are. I first met Moira through her work with the BMW demo truck, and now I run into her at events all across the country. She took some time out of her schedule during the MOA's rally in Salt Lake City last July to talk to me about her company, and especially how motorcyclists and the motorcycle industry are handling the increasing number of women joining the ranks of riders. So the interview portion of this episode, I'm here with Moira Zinn from Powertrip Industries, owner-operator of Powertrip Industries, that has a number of clients in the powersports world. And you do press launches, you do demo truck events, which is how we know who you are because you're usually with the BMW demo truck. And you do all sorts of stuff like that. We'll get to talking a little bit about that. But first, I like to talk about motorcycles because that's why we're all here. That's what we love to do. And I'm super curious to find out how you got into motorcycling. Like, what was your first bike and your first kind of motorcycling experience?
Ultimately, my father's to blame, and he totally owns it right now. He had a 1969 Honda CB350 that he brought in the crate back to the United States from Japan.
Wow.
Because he was working there with General Electric in '69, and I grew up in a dairy farm, so there's stuff with wheels that, you do everything from driving tractors to otherwise when you're 4, and they do it just to keep us busy, but you end up being exposed to it a lot, and my father did a fair job of teaching me that it's normal, Like, I didn't know that doing stuff with wheels was abnormal for women until I was much older.
Yeah.
And but my first street bike was a Honda CB1, and it was a melt between a 1989 and a 1990, because we had moved from the farm to the city, and there's nowhere for you to ride as a kid. So I kind of gave it up for a little while, and then after high school, I got a bike, and my ex-husband, I believe, had put it together and combined the best. One had a hole in the engine, the other one had a bad frame. So you put the best parts together, and away I go. And it's a little 400cc. I think it had 21 horsepower.
Wow.
And we dynoed it, because why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah, might as well.
Super ridiculous. But it was, had huge carburetors, and it was up in Minnesota, and it had to be winterized, all that fun stuff. But started there, and then moved to Texas, and Texas is where I really learned to ride. I made a lot of friends with track associations, and we got up on the track, and I started a track day business and became the motorcycle division at a track. So
awesome.
He's a partner of mine, and I continue to be partners with him to this day, more because he won't cancel my contract. He thinks it's hilarious. And so
it is a little funny.
It is super funny. I moved from track days in 2012 to the formation of Powertrip Industries. We went national. I feel that we know what the market that my business is in is experiential marketing for power sports, and we do power sports only. So if it doesn't involve wheels, we don't touch it. So I'm not going to take on a client simply because they want me to represent their brand. We do it because my people and our logistics and the events that we know that are close to our heart are things that go vroom and that move, because they move more than just our feet. So
yeah, that's fantastic. So I know through your connection, BMW Motorrad is one of your clients, or BMW North America, or whatever they're currently called. It's sometimes hard to keep track. Is one of your clients, so you have access to pretty much any BMW motorcycle. But which ones do you like to ride? Which one have you bought a BMW?
I have. So I have two that are my own personal machines. I have a 1974 R75/6. And she's been a work in progress. When I first bought her, she was owned by an elder gentleman that he had passed away in his estate. I bought it from his estate. So he had every bolt that had ever come off of it. He had the original float in a box. I have 3 sets of luggage. I have...
Sounds like a hoarder.
I have a windjammer on this thing that, man, it's a throwback, and it's awesome. But I am not a hoarder, and I've struggled with getting rid of anything that goes with this bike. But I've changed it out. It's now a cafe racer. Her bars are different. Her seat is different. I'm about to change out the whole front because the brakes leave a lot to be desired. So slowly changing it, and I think I'm going to go all in and just airbox delete and just change her up and start welding things. But
that sounds exciting.
Yeah, so that's my project. And we work on her when I'm a little slow in business. But my new love affair is with an R9T Scrambler. So she is lovely. She has the cross spoke wheels and the knobbies, and I'm starting to edge more toward dirt, and I'm going to make her into a baby GS, and we're going to start putting her up on tops of mountains and stuff.
Well, luckily that platform is pretty close to a baby GS to start with.
Yeah.
And I love the Scrambler styling. I never rode Scramblers coming up. Much like your father, I was enamored with Hondas and those CB750s that were my first love in motorcycling. And it was so easy to buy a basket case, strip it of all the good stuff, and keep your other bike running. You know, that's one of the beautiful things about those old Hondas is they were so, I don't want to say modular, but they were so easy to work on to a certain extent.
You just put quarters in them, and the same goes for that older BMW. My user manual tells me how to literally work on it in the grass under a tree. So that whole era just have such a love affair with how easy everything was to work on. And I think what I'm finding more and more, and like you mentioned, I have other clients, but the technology that BMW has put out to us, but yet at the same time still remembering that their fan base wants to get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
And you can get your hands dirty as much as you want. They'll let you, or they'll do it for you, either way. But there's still very kind of a nod to you can still change your own oil. And they design the bike around the idea that you're going to do your own oil.
Yeah, and it's, with the spin-on filters and the easy access drains, it's still pretty easy for really anybody to at least get a little dirty.
Right.
So I know that I met you through your work with the demo truck.
Correct.
It's been a couple of years at least.
Correct.
And so how many of those demo truck events do you think you do in a year?
This year we're going almost every weekend. So, look at the calendar.
Yeah.
Count the weekends. And those are our events. Because even in the winter, we do the motorcycle shows with the International Advanced Star, the International Motorcycle Show Tour.
And they've got an 8-date schedule this winter.
And AIM Expo comes into play. And, I mean, those are budget decisions that aren't mine, but we go just about every weekend. The next place, like after a national event like this, where it's a longer event, it's a larger setup, we do a tent, and otherwise we usually have about a week break. Everybody goes home and actually we see your family and do what you need to do. And then there is office work that we have to take care of.
Sure. Well, I mean, you are running a business, so, you have to talk to your accountant, you have to talk to your people, you have to set other things up. Because even though you're really busy with BMW, they're not the only company that you do work for. So tell me about who else you do stuff for.
So we've done some work for Dunlop. They recently had the Q3 Plus press launch. We provided the people in their garage, we provided equipment, and we did some logistical support for them. And then we do the finer marketing touches. So these things like how to position to entice people to take Instagram photos. And you set it up just right, and people will market for you.
Yeah.
So Dunlop, we've done some press stuff for Indian. We've also done some photo shoot action for their Slingshot, as well as victories in the past. And you're Michelin, Mazda, we've done some work with Mazda as well. So branching through to the car side, and it's just it's a different world, but it's really shocking how parallel it runs.
Yeah.
They're just larger objects, and for those people that are passionate about it, they're kind of the same human. They just like to hold a wheel.
Yeah, instead of handlebars.
Correct.
So, I'm not a business owner. I tend to hedge more towards being a contractor, and I have a number of different part-time gigs that I try to string together. So, when you think about a business owner in the motorsports industry, whether it's motorcycles or cars or whatever, it's not usually a woman's face that pops up as your first kind of stereotype for that kind of thing.
Right.
So I'm kind of interested. I can see how with your background, how you got into this, but how have you found staying in the power sports industry?
Well, I got into the power sport industry. We wanted to start a track day company because we didn't believe in the ones that existed in the state of Texas. There was one that was very race oriented. I mean, all they wanted to do was race and certify people, and they were very, very good at it. They don't exist anymore, but they were exceptionally great at it. There's another one that just likes to pack the house, and they believe in quantity over quality. And we had a different understanding. So we kind of, and I say we because my husband, while he has his career, he's pretty picky about how things go. So he provided feedback for it, but I ran the ship. Then the best part about all of it is when someone walks in the door and I want to talk to the guy in charge, is the phrase. They want to talk to the guy in charge. And
the guy is you.
And the guy is me, and I smile and deal with it. But my background in business started with, I'm a geek at heart, so database management and tracking the human in a database. And at the end of the day, that's what companies want. That's what my clients want. My clients want to know where people first got interested in their product, whether it's a tire or a car or a motorcycle, a snowmobile, whatever it might be. Ultimately, they want to know, not necessarily John Smith and his name specifically, but the demographics and where to focus their money and how to best serve their budget, not necessarily just to spend money.
Right.
So I believe that Powertrip helps them greatly with that. And we have a great understanding of the product, be it the motorcycle or otherwise, because I'm not interested, my people aren't just interested in going out and giving them a ride, because that gets people hurt. I want to ultimately make you fall in love, because when you fall in love, then there's nothing that will stop you from getting that product, whether it is a tire or a motorcycle or otherwise. So, and I feel we do that exceptionally well.
So do you have different teams for different clients?
Absolutely.
So you don't try to have your Mazda experts and your BMW motorcycle experts cross over.
And absolutely, we do not cross streams to competitors. So I mean, when you talk about doing different brands in different markets, I have a totally separate team that works with different motorcycles. So our people become really the face of that manufacturer. And if I'm doing my job right, people don't know Powertrip exists, which is great news. We really don't have something that's the consumer isn't going to Google me to find out all about Powertrip. The consumer should Google BMW Motorrad or Indian or whatever they might be. They should Google that because, again, if I'm doing my job right, I'm representing my client, and they don't know my company exists.
Yeah, I mean, I first thought that you were with BMW, and it wasn't until probably the third or fourth time that I met you that you corrected me on that, and I understood that this is your business is making BMW look good, and now we come to find out that it's not just BMW, it's Dunlop and Mazda and all these other guys. So you must have a pretty large team of people to draw from.
I do. I have like the BMW team itself. I think we have 12 people that are dedicated to that team. We get asked a lot how to join a team. Timing is everything. People don't come off a team very often. If we're doing it right, we're holding on to our people because of the product training involved, the gear that's associated to it, and just consistent behavior that we maintain a consistent team. But it's pretty rare that I would have someone that would come from a different product markup and go across. There are times where someone will go from a motorcycle team to a tire team and or to a car team, but certainly in the same market, never, ever, you don't cross those streams. I mean, it gets confusing to the client if they start to recognize Carlos, for example. They recognize him and they know his face with a rondelle, and then they see him somewhere else in a photo shoot, and it gets
even a slingshot, and it's confusing.
It gets very confusing to them. So we tend to do best, and of course there are contractual obligations. I have no interest in making any of my clients upset that I'm confusing their public. So, or giving away corporate secrets because we have product training.
Do that.
No. We have product training that people don't get on the outside world. We know some of these things that are happening in corporate offices, and we're very, very careful and very clear that my teams don't even know between them what's going on between one and the other. So it's a careful balance.
Yeah, it sounds just a little stressful sometimes.
Sometimes.
Straight.
Yeah, it's sometimes. So.
Well, I would like to talk a little bit more about motorcycles. In doing this podcast series, most of the business owners I've talked to are men. Most of the motorcycle riders I talk to are men. The proportions are changing as time goes on, but as the number of women involved in motorcycling grows, we all try to find ways to appeal to the new demographic without alienating our old demographic. So I'm just interested a little bit in some of the things that you've experienced as a woman riding motorcycles in such a heavily male dominated sport. You don't think of when you think of Harley Davidson, you don't think of a woman on a Harley Davidson. Now, I tend to, when I think of BMW, I think of men and women and old people and young people because that's where I like to think that the BMW community is a little more diverse. But what's kind of been your experience in that arena?
We get asked about it a lot. Women riding motorcycles, what I've learned overall is most women are raised they don't think it's a thing. They aren't discouraged from doing it. They just don't realize they can ride in the front. Many of them, even as teenagers or whatever, hitting on young boys and the Skittles motorcycles, and they're all plastics and otherwise. And more and more, they're learning that they can own it, they can ride it, they don't have to get on the back. They first of all, that's the first hurdle, is even realizing it's a thing, because it doesn't occur to them as a thing. And I think that's just our culture overall. It's much more the norm in other countries. I mean, if you look at Asia, they all ride scooters. It's a different version of a hammer, and it's a utility and it's a necessity. So they all do it. They all jump on it and they all do it. And it's a school of fish, and it's terrifying and awesome all at the same time. But safety in numbers. Yeah. And or you look at Europe, and the attitude culturally is it's just more a thing there. Here, it's starting to become a thing. We see a lot of women on cruisers. More, it's the low center of gravity. Yeah. It's the height. The average height of women, I'm 5'9.5". In boots, I'm a lot taller than that.
Sure.
And because I ride a lot, my confidence in holding a bike up, regardless of size, is a little bit different than the norm. So people ask me how you become better. I said, ride more. Ride more,
yeah. Just like anything else. You want to get better at it, practice.
So it's that daunting hurdle to how do you reach women? What kind of woman is going to ride motorcycles? And that's the big question. And we're sometimes physically a little more complicated in that we carry our weight in different places. We're all different shapes, whereas men are traditionally more square, and we're more not square. I'll just politely put it that way. We aren't, except we're all very different, whether it's long inseam or short inseam or hips or no hips or waist or no waist. It just makes it a little bit more complicated, but I think with the use of polite Velcro, we're getting there.
I have to agree with you that in our culture, a lot of women don't realize it's a thing. But the something that struck me as a little bit funny in that arena is I have a 15-year-old daughter who has obviously been around motorcycles since the day she was born and has never seen me with anything but a BMW motorcycle. I got my first BMW before she was born. And she started talking about riding a motorcycle before she started talking about driving. Now it's switched around a little bit because she's a little more excited about driving because high school and that kind of thing. But she's shown interest in the Camp Gears program, the MOA's program. She wants to do a MSF course next summer. I told her we'd do it together. It's kind of a bonding experience. But she's also had really great role models. One of our family friends is an Iron Butt rider. Just last week completed the Iron Butt rally for the first time.
Awesome.
And I can see what you're talking about. But I also I'd like to think we're making some progress on that. And it kind of happens, one kid at a time to make that a thing.
I think so. And I mean, I have daughters myself. I have two daughters. They're now, they're over 20. My youngest will be 20 this year in November. But I have Jordan and Alexis. Jordan has given me a grandson. He's beautiful.
Nice.
And but both of them rode motorcycles first. I mean, the rules were they could ride a motorcycle when they could balance a bicycle. Yeah. If you can control a bicycle, we can get a motorcycle. And they went dirt bike riding when they were 5 and younger. Awesome. And then we had the luxury of a track. So we had a Ninja 250 that we got as a track bike, and put my kids on it.
Yeah, get your gear on and get out there.
And I remember Lexi came in from out on the track and didn't know how to shift. And how do you explain to a young kid, I think she was 11 maybe, how do you explain to her how to shift when I'm not on the bike with her?
Right.
And so I did the best thing I could do, which I recommend anybody, is as a parent, hire someone. So as a parent, as a spouse, don't try. There's an emotional thing there.
Yeah.
There's an odd connection that the person learning seems to set in their head that they have to be perfect. And we won't ever be, because you're new at it. That's why you're learning. Yeah. So I had instructors, and my favorite instructor was Brandon Altmeyer. He was a kid racer. And he was the same age as Lexi, and the two of them went out, and he said, hey, you know how when your mom drives your car, it goes vroom, vroom. She shifts there. Just like on our video game, shift there. So she did. She went out, she listened to the bike, and she shifted there. Now, she didn't know she had to hold the clutch when she came in. She killed the bike right away. So it was all these little things, but you know, she's riding motorcycles first. They were both licensed to ride motorcycles first. They rode motorcycles to school because in the state of Texas, at 15, you can get your motorcycle license.
Really?
You have to get your car permit, right, and then take the MSF, and you can't take passengers, and it's $250 or less. You have to wear a helmet. You can't ride at night. No riding on the freeway. But
she can ride it to school and back.
If I don't have to take you to band practice, I'm winning somehow at life. So, we moved to a new school district, and I talked to them and asked, because the first school district had restrictions on upperclassmen. We're the only ones who had parking passes.
Oh, really?
So, and they didn't have motorcycle-specific parking.
Of course not.
So,
at a high school?
At a high school.
Even think of that?
Right. So, I asked at the new school, and they looked at me and they go, well, she's not going to be 16 until I go, no, she's going to ride a motorcycle in at 15. So, and they were horrified. And they said, well, she can't. And I said, what, are you bristled because it's dangerous? And they go, no, she can't park by them. They're idiots. So they were very worried that her driving her motorcycle around new drivers,
right,
she was going to get killed.
So they weren't worried about her, they were worried for
correct.
her.
That's exactly right. So they did tell me they had motorcycle parking on a cement pad that they had just done for the
faculty,
teachers.
Yeah.
And so they wanted her parking in the faculty motorcycle parking lounge, and
that must have been a little bit of a boost, a cool factor.
A little bit. It was, yeah. And I don't know that she ever used it. I think she just continued because it was too far away. It's a huge campus, and it was too far away, so she parked. And she went in really early with band, and then she hung out late because she'd always let traffic just get out of the way. You don't want to sit in that anyway. But that one, man, ooh, as a parent, you sit back, and whether I'm in power sports or not, I'm still a mom. So right. Weird things but talk about a spoiled kid. I wish I had, parents like me when I was learning how to ride. I mean, I had a track, so she learned how to ride on a track from Doug Poland. Of course she did. Who wouldn't? Yeah. That's normal in her world. She had there was no, it didn't seem odd to her. So her hanging out in that kind of capacity, where she's hanging out with Bubba Schobert and like Doug Poland, and we're just hanging out. And my fan head is going crazy because King Kenny is just around the corner, and holy moly, right? I'm just some kid, right? Because these are my heroes. And this is her normal. And it's a little ridiculous, and I love it to pieces.
It is a little ridiculous. Has either of your kids shown any interest in, kind of joining your company and kind of continuing on what mom does?
Both of my kids are so dramatically different, as it normally happens in a family. You get this big teeter-totter, and one's on one end of the other, and they balance each other out. No, my eldest is, she is my personality, which kind of fits in the category of don't tell me what to do. And
no.
I know, you're shocked, right? And so she's blazing her own trail, and it's just wonderful to watch. Just as a parent, you get really proud to watch that I have never been so proud in my whole life as my daughter telling me to mind my own business. It's wonderful and raging, but fantastic. I've never been so proud of her because I'm a tough personality to say no to, and it's wonderful that she has it. So, and then the youngest, she is right now at the United States Merchant Marine Academy in Kings Point, and is going engineering. And I can't wait to see what the world is like with her running it.
Yeah.
So and if she comes home and wants to do it, that's great. But the view I see, that one, I'm going to have to go to Thailand to have lunch with her.
Right.
And so it's going to become a little more career-oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you one question that kind of pulls back to when we were talking about your business a little bit. I'm one of the first people to admit when I don't know something or I don't understand something because I want to. So as I've been doing these interviews, when somebody would talk about something, I would just, ask them, what is that? I don't know what a press brake machine is. So I asked, what's a press brake? Right. So when you talk about logistics, what is logistics?
Oh, how to get a team there.
And you don't just pile them all in the truck with the bikes?
We all just sit on the bikes in the truck, yeah. No, we do, it's everything from hotel rooms and flight patterns and rental cars, but it lends to other things like security and do you use carpeting and what is your corporate image manual for that client say, because each client has their own method and rules by how you can display things, and some are more strict than others. So it could go from anything from whether you can have flowers on the table to what is a centerpiece and how is that defined, to how do we move motorcycles and what gear is required. All of those little pieces of the puzzle, we put those pieces together. So where does a desk sit? Right. How do we put wristbands on people? What software is used to collect their names? All of those pieces of the puzzle. And then do we have photos for social media to give to corporate office? And I mean, it's the big wheel, and once it gets spinning,
all the tiny details that can very easily get overlooked.
Yep. So, and it's sometimes the small details that can just absolutely destroy a situation.
Yeah.
So,
or make something that's kind of on the verge go bad or good.
It's as we call it, and I now have a hard time after working as many events as I do. I have a difficult time being a consumer walking into an event and not seeing what's behind the curtain.
Yeah,
I see the black shirts. And to go black shirt is basically I'm the human running the show, but I'm not wearing a logo and I'm just kind of blending in, and you don't really know I'm even there. Yeah. That's the goal, is to just run the show.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I love motorcycles. I'm a journalist. I love motorcycle magazines, but I have a really hard time reading them because they spelled that word wrong and there shouldn't be a semicolon there. And, so I get what you're talking about.
The devil's in the details. Yeah. It's all the devil's in the details.
Sometimes it's hard to kind of separate yourself and just enjoy. Well, listen, Moira, I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come sit and talk with us for this. And I'm sure I'll see you at the AIM Expo in Columbus.
Yes, sir.
Although this may come out after that, so it may already have been done. But I definitely look forward to learning more about the BMW motorcycle world through the demo truck and when it shows up. Oh, wait, before we go, somebody asked me to ask you this question.
Okay.
Is there, how does somebody get in touch with BMW to see if they can get the demo truck to their event?
That's I don't even know.
Because they call you when they say go to Utah.
Go to Utah. Usually, if it's dealer related, the dealer knows how to contact their area manager, and then their area manager can suggest to corporate. There's a full event staff that decide those, and so much goes into those decisions. It isn't just money. It isn't just attendance.
It could be the truck's on the wrong side of the country.
Correct.
We can't do it.
Yep. I mean, maybe it's going to take me 2 weeks to get the truck there. Maybe we have a competing event at the same time. Right. Maybe, and it's a lot of factors weigh into that. But the area managers are really kind of that way in.
So you would say go to your dealer.
Go to your dealer.
See if they can help you out with
Talk to your dealer. If it's a local event, dealer support is
critical.
Is really kind of a fantastic way to go. Is that end. Especially if it's a smaller event, the dealers may handle it directly. And I know a lot of dealers, primarily on the West Coast, have their own demo fleets that they'll bring bikes to an event, whether it's just to show them off.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, like here, it's been fantastic. Harrison's has been great in there, offering a shuttle.
Yeah.
And getting people
clearing
T-shirts
their service schedule and all that. They've done a great job.
So dealer support is kind of critical, and that goes for whether it's BMW or otherwise. But the dealer network is the first place I'd start.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And once again, I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you out there on the road with the truck sooner or later.
I look forward to it.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Powertrip Industries has a website, but there's not really much on it to give you too much information. So it's one of those things that's really kind of heavily industry oriented. However, if you're out running around and you happen to see BMW's motorcycle demo truck, stop by, sign up, take a demo ride, and tell them how great a job you think they did. Moira will be definitely glad to hear it. Because this podcast is produced by the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America, in every episode I will highlight one benefit of being a member. I admit it's an enticement to get you to our website and get you to join for at least 1 year. I've been a member since 1999 and have used the member benefits to my advantage countless times since then, especially the roadside assistance program that I sign up for every year. But that's not what I'm going to tell you about today. Today, it's all about the MOA Foundation and its latest motorcycle raffle. The Foundation's mission is to improve rider safety and support motorcycling and its rich heritage. The Foundation promotes programs for first-time riders and supports educational and personal growth programs related to safe and enjoyable motorcycle use. Any MOA member who takes any recognized motorcycle training course can apply to the Foundation for what is called a Paul B scholarship. Each scholarship is $250, so even with the new membership fee of $49, you're coming out $200 ahead just by being an MOA member and taking a motorcycle training class. Last summer, the Foundation's Super Stakes resulted in 16 brand new BMW motorcycles being given away in a massive raffle. The new raffle opportunity is smaller in scope, but it's still a great opportunity for anybody that likes vintage bikes or modifying those bikes to get a cool, lightly used Airhead. The bike is a 1978 R80/7 donated to the Foundation by MOA board member Sam Garst. Sam's friend Randy Boris, who works at Anschutz Motorsports in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, he's also an MOA ambassador, by the way. Randy performed some basic maintenance on the bike, tracked down and fixed a minor electrical gremlin. The R80 is unrestored, but it comes with Krauser side cases and a luggage rack that were installed on it when it was bought new in 1977. The bike is ready to ride as is, or it's ready to be turned into an awesome cafe racer project, whatever you want to do with it. A raffle ticket costs $25, and this raffle is open to everybody, whether or not you're an MOA member. Tickets went on sale on the 1st of October, and they'll continue to be sold through the end of November, November 30th. The drawing itself will be held on December 16th, and somebody will get to take that R80 home. You can read more about the bike and get the link to buy a ticket by pointing your web browser to tinyurl.com/foundationr80. That's 80. You can also sign up for our mailing list, and I'll send the URL out again over the course of the next few episodes. The address for that mailing list is coming up in just a minute. I want to thank you for coming back for the 5th episode of Chasing the Horizon, which featured a discussion with Moira Zinn of Powertrip Industries. Our next episode will feature world traveler and filmmaker Daniel Rintz. That episode will be out on October 16th, 2017. To help Daniel promote his upcoming film, his second film actually, but it doesn't have a title yet, we'll be giving away 3 copies of his first film, which is called Somewhere Else Tomorrow. The only way to enter the drawing for a copy of the film is to sign up for the Chasing the Horizon email newsletter. You can do that by going to the newsletter website, which is at tinyletter.com/chasingthehorizon. That's tiny, as in very, very small, letter.com/chasingthehorizon. There's also a link on the main podcast page. You know what that is, bmwmoa.org/podcast. We'll have the drawing for the 3 copies of Somewhere Else Tomorrow on Sunday, the 29th of October, and announce the winners on the episode that comes out the next day on the 30th. Sign up for the email newsletter and get your chance to win a free copy of the movie between now and October 29th, 2017. Andrew Finberg composed and recorded our theme music. Karen Hawker designed our logo. Thanks again to all our guests and listeners for giving us their time. We'll see you out there somewhere on the road or off it. Ride safe.